People are starting to wake up out there, and as of the recording of this video, I believe the most of the markets are down about 1% or so today on Tuesday. What happened? What happened and what is going on? Is this going to spread through the financial markets, and is this going to translate into more panic in the store shelves and purchasing? Is this a beginning of a panic buying run? What happened today was two things. The PPI of Germany just came out, which is the it's like the CPI, which is the inflation index for civilians. The PPI is the inflation index basically for the manufacturers. So the manufacturing companies, they have to pay certain amounts of money for their electricity, for their inputs, all the raw supplies that they buy. That rate for Germany went up to 45% as compared to last August. So 2021 August to 2022 August, 45% increase in all inputs across the board, across the entire economy. And people look at that and they say that that's going to come out because they're going to pass along those increases to regular people. So it means that the CPI is going to shortly go up to about 45%. That's a big number. That caused a little bit of a drop, and then what happened was the Riksbank, which is the Central Bank of Sweden, they moved up their rates 1%. So they went from 0.75% interest rate up to 1.75 interest rate. What does that all mean? Sweden over doubled their interest rate for banks out there, and that just shocked the markets. And so a lot of people are going, well, what's the Federal Reserve going to do on Wednesday if the Swedish pacifists, basically, in monetary terms, Sweden's part of Europe, and they don't want to raise interest rates at all. If they're getting super aggressive on interest rates, what's the Federal Reserve going to do? And so that's what's really spooked markets. But let's understand what's going on here, okay? Sweden's PPI is over 20%, okay? Over 20%. They say it went down in August. I have no idea why they would say that. It was like a 25+%. And then in July, and supposedly it dropped. I don't know. That sounds kind of suspicious to me. But 20% inflation, let's say that. And the interest rate was at 0.75%. Now it's just under 2%. Inflation should not be higher than the interest rate. If it is, you get these absurdities. Let's use an example. Imagine that we had 50% inflation, okay, and we had interest rates at 1%. So I go to the bank and I borrow $10,000 today to be paid back next year with 1% interest paid on that, right? So I have to pay $100 for the privilege of having that $10,000 for a full year. Basically, I borrow $10,000 today, and I have to pay back $7,600 next year. If someone offered you that offer, would you take that? You have to take $10,000 out today, and you have to pay back $7,600 next year. You get to pocket the extra $2,400. So if you were to take out a loan, and then you were to just buy rocks or bricks or, I don't know, toilet paper, I don't care, something that you can resell next year once prices have gone up. That's effectively what you do. You pocket about 24% of this investment. Now, let's step back and imagine you're a major bank and you're not borrowing $10,000. You're borrowing billions and billions of dollars. Because banks around the world are borrowing trillions of dollars at these interest rates. Trillions of dollars. Imagine you're JP Morgan or something like that, and you take out $1 trillion of loans from one of these central banks or several central banks. And you have to pay back next year $760 billion. And you get to keep the $240 billion difference. Okay? That's insane. And yet that's the world that we're living in right now. What's to stop a bank like JP Morgan, Chase, going out and borrowing all that money and then just buying silver or gold or whatever, just something stable? And gold's probably a better option there, or, they invest in treasuries or something like that, and they just kind of roll it over. And then come next year, they know that money has become a lot less valuable when they pay it back. They've just profited all of that money. It's just insanity what's going on there. It doesn't even make sense. It's ridiculousness and it's foolishness, and yet all these really smart people, supposedly, sit around the banks and get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to conjure up explanations of why this is rational and normal. They probably don't know how they should identify gender-wise, and they can't identify how this is absolutely crazy financial policy. So Argentina, they just boosted their interest rates to 75%. Okay? Their inflation is projected to be at 100%. So basically, 50% of everyone's money in Argentina gets taken away every year. Oh, well, I make $200,000. Well, yeah, you made $100,000. The inflation steals all the money from everybody. If you have $1 million saved up for retirement, you're getting late in your working years and you've worked really hard to build up that nest egg. Well, a year later, you now have half that in purchasing power. The government and the banks are basically going out there and literally stealing all of this money from people, all this value, and transferring all that value to these bankers and politicians. How long do you think this is going to go before people get upset? Are you seeing people in your store, your grocery store, looking a little upset? Have you noticed people around you are a little more on edge because of the way things are going? They are seriously upset, and they're about to get way, way, way more upset as that 45% passes through the German manufacturing to the German population, and it's starting to, mind you. They're dealing with an interest rate of 0.75%. Okay? Almost 50% inflation, just under 1% interest rate. That scenario that I gave you of 1% interest rate and 50% inflation, that's exactly what they are living right now. And if you don't think that there's going to be pitchforks and torches in the streets very soon, you got another thing coming to you. I get it that it's been a while since we've seen in the streets of Europe mass people out there, but we're moving into another season where that is going to be the case again. People are getting bit by the inflation, and they are going to take it out on somebody. What we're seeing is a joke. We're seeing the central banks, we're seeing the central planners piddling around with, is the Federal Reserve going to raise it by 0.75%, or are they going to raise it a whole percent? We're dealing with close to 30% inflation in the United States, if not more than that right now. It's hard to tell because we just get lies from the government. If we're looking at 30% inflation and they're piddling with like another 0.5%, just to give you some idea, in order to get inflation under control back in the early 1980s and the late 1970s, 20% interest rate. We're piddling around like 1-2% here. We need to go up to 20% or worse, because what we're dealing with now is way, way, way worse than what we were dealing with in the 1970s and the early 1980s. We probably need an interest rate of 30, 40, 50%. We should be talking about how many tens of percents are we going up, not point whatevers. And the simple fact that our leaders are completely unable to deal with reality. Completely unable to deal with reality. We have a bunch of toddlers who are trying to shuffle around the chairs on the Titanic's deck in order to squeeze a little more money, squeeze a little more time out of things before the whole ship goes down, and they're trying to keep people from panicking, and that's where we are. But mark my words, as soon as people start to figure out what's going on, there's going to be people tarred and feathered, because the incompetent and evil people who have brought us to this point, the people are going to turn on them. Now, don't get me wrong. The people that put those people in power, the people that allowed those people to have power, namely all of us, we are guilty too. Now, we don't want to admit that, but the people get the government that they deserve. The people get the government that they will tolerate. They get the government that they... I mean, where do you think these people in government come from? They come from the general population. If you have a nation of psychopaths, it's natural that your leaders become psychopathic, right? We tolerate psychopaths in the United States and Europe and elsewhere. And because of that, we are getting the government that we deserve. A bunch of people who cannot deal with reality, cannot even face the fact that reality is what it is. Piddling with point whatever's percents, we're going to have a significant increase in interest rates. And when we do, that's going to devastate the stock market. People say, oh, well, inflation is good for a stock market. Interest rates going up are not good for the stock market. The amount of corporate debt exceeds the amount of money that our federal government has borrowed. Our corporations have borrowed ridiculous amounts of money at super cheap interest rates. And the problem is, as those loans roll over, those interest rates are going to get hit higher and higher and higher, and they are going to start defaulting like nobody's business on those loans. And when they default on those businesses, those banks are going to start confiscating assets. And that is going to be a serious, serious thing. Expect the bottom to drop out of the stock market. Expect the bond markets to crash. The only safe places that you might land in are things like silver and gold. Commodities may hold up, but they'll probably get hit hard too. I would not be surprised if silver and gold drop, another 10, 15, 20%. But that's not going to be anything compared to what the stock market's going to do. When the bankers, when the economists, when investors figure out what's going on, they will lose their minds. They have not seen something like this in hundreds of years. Nobody has an idea of how bad this will get. When you start having sizable percentages of the stock market defaulting on their loans, a lot of stocks are going to go to zero. And people can't handle that. I mean, you can be diversified, but if the markets that you're diversified in basically are garbage, then you will get a diversified garbage. And is that going to show up at the stores? Yes, absolutely it is. People are going to panic at the stores once they realize that their money, their cashy dollars, are disappearing like nobody's business. And there's nowhere to hide. They can't put it and get interest for it because it's losing money faster than the interest is giving it. When people figure that out, they're going to start trying to grab hard assets like food, canned goods, anything that's not nailed down in the stores, they will buy up in order to try to hide their money in something that's not losing value. When that happens, chaos is going to reign. September, October, not historically good times for the stock market. Be careful out there. This is not investment advice. Do your own research and everything like that into where to hide your money and what to do. Get some good counsel. Get some good resources out there. Make sure somebody's not just selling you a bill of goods. I don't think you can do wrong with hiding your money in actual money, which is silver and gold. For thousands of years, it's been actually money. Your paper currency, not worth anything. All right, folks, if you found this video useful or helpful, you might want to check out this other video from me right here. Otherwise, I will see you later. Steve Poplar, out.